So my interview was about me being involved with the National Socialist Movement or America's Nazi Party for 27 years. And one of the greatest challenges was overcoming that and leaving that and changing my life. And you can do that as well. So if someone coming from that extreme of an environment can change, certainly you can as well. So the toughest challenges I've had, probably I would say, is leaving the National Socialist Movement was one of the toughest challenges that I've faced. So it was a difficult challenge for me because for 25 years I led that organization. For 27 years I was involved in far right extremism. So as a kid, what I wanted to do was be a musician, a rock star. So I was really into music, and that's the type of kid I was. When I was little kid, my sister and we would throw imaginary rock concert with Christmas lights and things like that. And but I was I wouldn't say extraordinary necessarily in any way, but just your average kid growing up in small town rural Minnesota is where I'm from. So I knew about the far right from a very young age. I was drawn to it. My grandfather fought in the Third Reich during World War II. My great uncles fought as well. My one great uncle was captured at Stalingrad. My grandfather was POW in a Allied prisoner camp. And my other great uncle was injured. His tank was blown up in the Ardennes offensive. So I knew about that from quite a young age, and I was always fascinated with it. And when I was 15, I went over to visit family in Germany. And I do need to preface this and say it was not something that my family supported, wanted. It wasn't something that was taught. It wasn't pushed on me. In fact, it was very difficult to even get my grandfather to talk about things, war experiences, and things like that. And I was warned quite often by my grandmother, don't ask him, don't talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about it. And, so slowly but surely, I'd ask questions and, I got him to talk about war stories and things like that, experiences, but it was never anything about the Nazi party or anything like that. As far as I know, they weren't party members or anything like that. So this was my own fascination with that history. And I looked up to my grandfather. He was a strong individual, a big personality, somebody that I always looked up to. I was very close to my grandparents. And again, to preface it, years later, he would, try to discourage me and get me out of that, for fear for my life or my freedom. At the time, it was just this fascination with it, and um, I don't want to say necessarily the power of it, but it just the whole the uniforms, I guess the power in some ways, the strength of it, it just looked like something I wanted to be part of. And one could say, well, this isn't necessarily an American movement. What do how does that work? Well, then I found the American connections to it. So my goal was to find the closest thing in America to the German movement, which is what I did, and and to be part of it. And I also want to say that my belief at the time was that I was doing something good, that I was doing something noble, that I was fighting for my people, that I was fighting for my country. When I got involved, what was appealing about it? I felt like I had a greater calling in life. Like my personal goal was originally, was to be involved in music and to take that route. And I felt like maybe that was selfish. Like maybe that was something that was, I wanted to do that for me because it was what I love doing. And that I should have a greater purpose than doing something for myself. That I should do something for my people is the way I looked at it, and having that mission or that cause. And I think a common misconception for a lot of people when they see people that are involved in these movements, they think you joined this because you wanted to be hated, you wanted to be the bad guy, and nobody wakes up and says, I want to be the bad guy, I want to do something bad and evil. I mean, if you do, you might be a sociopath or a psychopath or something like that. And I've come across those types, as well. But for me, that certainly wasn't it. I really truly believed in it, and I fought for it. I believed that the white race was under attack, and that by National Socialism was the only thing that was going to save the white race. That other organizations didn't quite have it right, that they were weak, that they couldn't get the job done, or they were using half measures or things like that. And that history as well. One thing I used to say a lot when I was involved was that in history, the victors write the history. So I felt like I was into that Holocaust revisionism, that I thought that was a lie, that these things were done to vilify the German people. And I identified with, my family, my mother and grandparents came over from Germany. So I felt, and my family was from Prussia. Actually, I didn't explain that. So the family lost their home and everything, and that was given over to Poland after World War II. So uh, the family had become refugees in their own country. My grandparents, well, my grandfather became a prisoner of war, and my grandmother lost her home and became a refugee, um, as did a lot of people. So um, uh, things like that, and learning about things like that, I thought, well, this is false. The history that they're teaching in America is false. And that angered me. And the connection to the Third Reich, and that was a powerful machine at one point in time. And was as wrong as it was, I didn't view it that way at the time. I viewed it as this was a group of people that raised up to try to save their country, and they were defeated, and they lost, and then people were thrown into prison camps, and missed the big point of it, that they persecuted Jewish people, gay people, Jehovah Witnesses, all kinds of different groups of people that were persecuted. Um, I missed that part. It's not that I missed it, but it didn't matter because they weren't my people. So it was very tribalistic in a sense, and very it wasn't looking at humanity as a whole, but just looking at it very tribalistic, and that's very easy to do in human nature, to just say, even with sports teams, I like this team, and if you don't like this team, let's get in a fist fight over it. It's just it's very tribalistic, and that's a simple example, but on a grander scale, it's kind of how we looked at it. It's like, well, you're not part of the white race, you don't matter. And if you're part of the white race and you don't agree with us, you also don't matter. You're not part of the in group, so to speak. You're not part of the tribe. You're not part of the community. You're a traitor. You're a scumbag. You're this. You're that. Is very isolationist. And when you get in that mindset where you're that isolated and you're that isolationist, it's very easy to start demonizing other people, looking down on people, judging them, and all of a sudden you're in this echo chamber, or you're in this bubble, and you don't even realize you're in there, and now you're completely isolated, and all it's about is defending that castle, so to speak, or defending that bubble, defending those barriers, and being up on the barricades. And in speeches and things like that later on, I would often quote the Alamo, which pretty much everybody died, but it's like, we're defending the white race, we're up on the barricades like at the Alamo, and we will fight to the last man. And that's how I viewed it. Movements like that provide a lot of a sense of belonging for a lot of people, and I mean, for me as well, for everybody, that typically that's involved in it. And I can say, and reflecting back, the period of time when I was searching for the group, when I hadn't found um, actual members or actual people that were around, was a more, I guess you could say, isolated time period. It wasn't that I didn't have friends. I always had girlfriends. I always had some friends around and things like that. So it wasn't that I didn't have that. It wasn't that I was terribly isolated, which is a pretty common thing for a lot of people that join this, because that sense of belonging is a big part of it, and it's also a big part of how difficult it is to leave, because it becomes like Groups like that in particular, a lot of folks will say it's like a cult. I refer to it that way now, but at the time, I certainly didn't believe that. I thought people that were in cults were nuts, that there was something wrong with them, that they were weird or strange or that sort of thing, or gullible, that they were sheep, that they would just go along with something. And it's a completely wrong way of looking at it. Actually, some of the people that are in even some of the really bizarre cults are highly intelligent and things like that. So anybody is susceptible to this type of thing, and I think that's important for the world to understand that it's not uh, always just somebody that's slow or that's that sort of thing. Anybody is susceptible to this type of thing. The groups like that operate a lot like families. Some of the groups even call themselves skinhead groups. A lot of times will call themselves skinhead families, even very openly. First meeting, I met with all those different groups that were in the Twin Cities. And I think a clan. I ended up meeting with a clan group as well, and they all seemed like interesting groups. But the National Socialist movement was the it was pretty small at the time. It was there was the guy that ran it had been an original member with George Lincoln Rockwell, the founder of the American Nazi Party. So there was that historical connection. I dedicated myself to the NSM, and then I helped build up what at that point had become a pretty small organization with just a handful of people. But I was impressed by the leader and that historical connection and his oratory skills, his ability to speak, and I was mentored by him and eventually appointed to run the organization. He started by showing us what he called the one man demonstration. So went to downtown Minneapolis. He went in front of a federal building in Nazi uniform with a Nazi flag and said, there was three of us. It was myself and two other guys. He says, you guys take pictures. This is going to be the one man demonstration. I'm going to show you how it's done, how we build an organization, and then you will learn these skills later. I said, well, we got three guys. Why don't we do a three-man demonstration? Because that's not the point. I'm going to show you one person can do this in downtown Minneapolis by themselves. And that's the point. And what happens? You get attacked. He goes, take pictures. Do not intervene. And I was like, no, if you're attacked, we're going to intervene. He said, no, this is a direct order. You are not to intervene. I'm going to show you that this can be done. So I said, okay, fine. So myself and the other guy walked away to go stay away and not be in in word civilian clothes, and to take pictures. Now, as we're walking away, I said, I don't care what he says. If he gets attacked, we're going to go fight. That's all there is to it. He didn't get attacked, but a security guard came out of the federal building and was questioning him and writing down something on a pen and paper. People were driving by. Some were, flipping the middle, yelling, and others were saluting and yelling white power and things like that. That was one of our first lessons in what Commander Rockwell would call street theater. And it was something that we later duplicated, except in much larger numbers, and then grew the organization. So the head of the NSM and myself, we were going to go on this radio show, and it was a real popular talk show in the state. And they wanted to cover some of the. We were marching on the streets with swastika flags and things like that. So it was all over the TV news and stuff. So now we're doing interviews, and this was. For the organization, our way of trying to spread the message and get things out there on live radio. I was 19, I think, at the time, real young, brand new in the movement. I was just getting active. I was using a fake name at the time because I wanted to protect my family because I have a name that's not real common. And my mother was an attorney in the state of Minnesota, and my father was a business owner. So I didn't want to give them any grief because of my politics. So I was going under Jeff Stevens. My middle name is Steven. So I thought that was a clever fake name to use. So the talk show host says, here we have, the head of the NSM, and I wasn't the head at that time. I was a new member, but I was active as local group leader, and Jeff Stevens, and we're on the show and she's asking us questions, and I start going off on an anti-Semitic tropes, and I basically said, I made the comment that the Jews had been thrown out of every country they'd ever inhabited or they'd ever been in, and it was time to throw them out of America. I said that, and it set her off, which, I understand that now. But what she did was what we call doxing now. She says, "Your name is not Jeff Stevens. Your name is Jeff Scoop. You are from," and she named the little town I'm from in rural Minnesota. "Your mother is an attorney in this town." Maybe she didn't say the town, but she said, I don't remember for sure. But she said, "Your mother's an attorney and she works, here, and your father is a business owner and he works here," and did this live on the air. And she says, "And in the next hour, or in the next, after the commercial break, I'm going to call your mother at work and ask her why her son is a Nazi." She was going to call my mother, and so I'm going in. I felt like panic, and I'm like, uh "You are not calling my mother at work. And she's like, "What? Don't your parents love you?" And of course my parents love me, but I said, "No, my parents don't love me. I've been disowned from the family. This is damage control." Like, at that moment, I said, "I'm trying to protect my family." And so I'm saying on the air that they don't love me, that I don't have nothing to do with them, and to try to protect them. And she's like, "Nope, I'm calling after the commercial break." And then there's a caller that calls in. She's like, "I'm a huge fan of your show. I listen to it every day." She goes, "What are you doing? This young man, has hideous beliefs or whatever, but you're gonna call his mother at her work, and you just gave their names on the air?" She goes, "There's crazy people in this world. These are crazy people." She starts yelling at the fan. "These are crazy people." She goes, "There's crazy people that could hurt this young man's family out there." And he just said they have nothing to do with what he stands for. And what you're doing is wrong. And I'm a fan of yours. I don't, care, whatever." She hangs up on the woman. And, so now she's getting other calls, similar calls that are being screened. And she's, off the air, like during the commercial break. And she's yelling at the call screener, like, "How many calls are coming in for these guys?" And I can't hear him, but I can read his lips. And he's like, "A lot." And so she's getting more angry because her callers are getting angry. Her fans are getting angry, not just our people. But I was doxxed before doxing was a thing. I was doxxed. My family was doxxed. They were put in danger. They were getting threats, and even I don't even know to this day some of the threats and things that my family got because they just didn't want to tell me. At that point, I was brand new in the movement. I could have chosen a different course. I could have went anywhere, or done something different. And now I just got doxxed on the air. My family's been threatened. Um, they were furious. My mother was furious. She was called at work. I don't know if that was after we left the studio or what, but um, at that point I was like, well, I might as well use my real name now. And I was so angry from that. There was nobody anywhere could have gotten me out of the movement at that point. Like, I wouldn't have listened to anything because I was so upset. And now I feel like now my family's being targeted because of what I do. And they had nothing. They were against it. And I even said that, like, they don't believe in this. They're against it. My mother's liberal, even, so and I got people threatening, calling in threats to my little sister, all this kind of stuff. I was hearing things, and my family is not even telling me most of this stuff. I'm hearing it. Like, I knew there was a police officer that I knew that he was telling me some of this stuff, like, that my family was getting threats, and maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. And they're saying things like, if they can't get to me, that go after my family, hurt my family, which is pretty typical of some of the on the other extreme when they make threats and things like that. Um, that further radicalized me to a great degree. The woman that did that probably assumed she'll put pressure on me or my family. Maybe that would I don't know. I'm just speculating why someone would do something like that, because I never felt like in these environments it was sort of an unwritten code, at least in the far right, at least in the group that I was involved in. It was an unwritten code where you didn't mess with anybody's family. If somebody, you had a problem with somebody, it was their problem. You went after them. You didn't hurt their family. You didn't target their families. It was unthinkable. And if somebody did that, we would probably punish them or go after them. So it was a really hyper masculine environment to be in. So it's like you don't cry, you don't um show emotion, you don't you just you bottle it all in and fight fight back. I said, you're going to attack my family, I'm going to fight like hell. I will come after you to the ends of this earth to protect my family. That was the first major incident that led to my radicalization, because at 19 years old or around that age, there's time for uh, you could go any direction. I already changed from the rock and roll direction to the politics. I could have easily there could have been a major opportunity for her to show just a shred of compassion or dignity or understanding or even just simple kindness. I don't know. Like she could have tore apart my belief system on the radio, which would have been fair and just and understandable. But instead, she targeted my family, which which did not have any of the desired effects on it. It hurt me deeply. Hurt isn't the word I would have used back then. Rage would have probably been a better term, but it was a little bit of both. I mean, it was a lot of both, I should say. It led to my radicalization. It contributed to it. I mean, I don't I'm very careful not to place the blame on any of these people. I'm not saying it's his fault, it's her fault. It's my own fault. I made bad choices. But I'm also saying that these are opportunities to learn from in society going forward. So, as I explained, my mother was an attorney. She was running for judge in the state of Minnesota and was elected to be a judge. This was like my mother's dream, to be a judge. It was a big deal for her. She struggled through law school. She was an immigrant to the United States. She didn't speak a word of English when she came here. She had to struggle in the U.S. and come from a very poor family, and my dad did too. But they worked very hard. My parents worked very, very hard their entire life. I grew up seeing both parents working. My mother going to law school. Before that, she was a teacher. She taught German at the school. So I saw my parents working very hard, and that work ethic. And so my mother was elected to be a judge, and there's a formality in every state is different how the judgeships work, and there's a formality where in the state of Minnesota, this is my understanding of it from the way my mother explained it to me back then, um, where the governor signs off on all the new judges, just basically signs a piece of paper or whatever and says, okay. Um, she gets a phone call from the governor, and Mrs. Scoop, your father fought in the German army during World War II. Your son's a Nazi. We don't feel you're fit to be a judge in the state. That ruined her opportunity to be a judge. That would have been benefits for the rest of her life. And she, like I said, she was liberal. She was very, very much against everything politically that I stood for. And I just my affiliation destroyed her career, which she had nothing to do with. Well, yeah, it was the governor's wife or ex-wife that was on the talk show that doxed me, doxed my family, and put their names out. So Now I felt like the most powerful people in my state are targeting my family because of what I did as a 19-year-old kid. It made me feel like garbage. It made me feel like a piece of shit. And it damaged my relationship with my mother, which I was very close with. I mean, it took years to repair, understandably. Um, her initial reaction when that happened was, I did this on purpose, like to hurt her, like, I mean, that's obviously she didn't believe that. And, but at the time, that was her initial reaction, was that it was my fault. So these life experiences that I had, and that's just a couple of them. There's a lot of others, but some of those are some of the key principal incidents that led to fueling a lot of the rage and anger that I had. And I put all my energy, my time, everything, all of me into building that organization. I said, you know what? I'm going to make a difference in the world, and this isn't going to happen to anybody else. My enemies are now the most powerful people in the state. So uh, this is just why the corrupt system is how I viewed it, and that I would use every shred of my being and my energy and my army that I was building around me, or building up, to fight that injustice. And I'm using words like injustice, but that's how we talked, and that's how I believed. So it would, persecuting even someone that's saying wrong things, or saying things that are bad. Persecuting them is not going to help things. It's going to make things worse. And a lot of times people think doing things like doxing, doing things like pushing these people back works. It doesn't. It further radicalizes, and I've seen it almost every single time. And for me, it 100% radicalized me. It threw me into extremism, and I dedicated every bit of my being to that organization. And now, by the time I left, it was the largest Nazi organization in the United States. Yeah, so we learned from those things, and we exploited those things. Like, we put it in our publications. We broadcast later on, and years later, we broadcast that kind of thing on our podcasts, on our radio shows, on videos that we put out through speeches. We did all kinds of propaganda, video games, music, you name it. It grew like a beast, and kept growing and kept growing. And then you start reeling in other people that have felt they're being persecuted. It's almost a persecution complex, in a way, where these people feel like the system is persecuting them. Then sometimes they feel like other races are persecuting them, and they look for answers. Or when they've had bad experiences, they look for answers. It might be, we'd have people that would come to us, women that well, I was raped by a Mexican, or something. That's because they're all bad. You'd fit, that's the kind of things we'd say. And we'd say, that'll never happen to you again, because you're safe now. You're with us. You're in the group. You're protected. You're safe. So a lot of that, I think people from the outside looking in, they see these groups as being oppressors, and but nobody in it feels that way. I mean, there's some people that say, yeah, we want to enslave everybody. Those are the minorities, and those, like, I would say, jackasses, so to speak. And I would come across those people. I knew some of those people too, but most of the people, the vast majority, 80-90% at least, are regular people that have been through stuff, that are feeling like this is the answer, and the group would provide those answers. I had no goals or intentions to be the leader. I mean, I took on those responsibilities. When I was a local group leader, I was happy with that. I thought that was pretty meaningful. And then when the chairman of the party, or the commander of the party, was going to retire, and said that he was going to pass the organization on to me, I felt like the weight of the world just came down on my back. I was like, "You're doing what?" I'd been in for a couple of years, and now I was going to run this organization. It was fairly small at the times, but it still seemed overwhelming to me that that wasn't something that you were seeing kids or young people that age doing. So he says, "Well, I'll still, you can still call me up for advice or anything like that. I'll still be around. I'm not going to be able to." He had family things he had to take care of, and that came first. So it kind of fell on my shoulders, and I could have bolted and run the other way and said, "No, heck no, I'm out of here." Or but I chose to take on the responsibility, and the rest is history. So I guess I've always had this sense of justice, and I think this is something that surprises a lot of people, and I don't talk a lot about it. But growing up as a kid, and maybe there's some relevance here as well. Growing up as a kid, I would stick up for kids that were bullied in class, and I remember specifically there was one a boy that was from a really poor family, and his clothes were dirty and ripped and things like that, and people would pick on him, and I would get into fights. Just I didn't even really know the kid, but I didn't like that someone was being victimized because of their, clothing or things like that. And you talk about it having a disconnect. Like I would stick up for people that were being victimized. I never liked seeing people being bullied. I always stuck up for the underdog. I would, always had that sense of fairness and justice. And one thing I can say positive, I guess, about myself and my leadership over the years. And one of the reasons I was an effective leader in the movement, and one reason I was able to build an organization from a very small organization to the largest of its kind in the country, was because I was fair and because I used that sense of justice, even as a leader over the years. Now, it wasn't fair to all the people that I demonized and outside, but I'm saying group, why I was an effective leader is because I still carried that sense of fairness and sense of justice throughout my life. I guess that's one bit of silver lining in there, but that is one of the reasons why I was effective at what I did. One instance comes to mind as far as like what the organization billed as a glorious fight. And there was lots of them, but this one really sticks out. It was I forget the year, but it wasn't very long ago. It was in New Jersey, and we had the NSM national meeting there. Antifa had infiltrated found out where the national meeting was, and attacked it was in a church hall actually, and they attacked the vehicles, and were coming out with hammers and knives and clubs and all this kind of stuff. And they pepper sprayed one of our guards that was outside. And he had come in, and he's like, "Antifa's out here." So we cleared out the hall. And I said, "The women and the old people need to stay in. The rest of us are going out." I grabbed a chair because we weren't carrying weapons at the time. In this, they attacked the group. We came out. I hit a guy with the chair, and got maced, and a bunch of people got their heads split open and cut, knife wounds, and it was a big street battle. Pure adrenaline. Like we charged out. I remember there's people standing in the doorway taking pictures and stuff of the Antifa and the fighting and stuff. I just remember, get the fuck out of my way. We got to, we're gonna take care of this, and shove some of our guys out of the way that were, or whoever was standing there. I don't even know who. People taking pictures, which pissed me off at the time. And I charged out in there and started fighting. And so we got a little bit of this on video, and of course pictures because people were taking pictures. And one of there was a photographer there too. They had taken a picture with an Antifa with a hammer, you know, coming through the air, and one of our guys got his cheek broken because he got hit in the face with a hammer. Lucky he didn't get killed. um, and there was blood all over the streets and all that. We used that as big propaganda. That video clip was turned into music videos, fight, 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 and all this kind of stuff. Everybody in the movement in the United States had saw it. It was everywhere. It was a big deal. Like, I mean, here's this. This is going on, it it raised the intensity level, and people wanted to join us. We got a flood of new recruits, people that didn't show up at the meeting said, I'll never miss another one, I want to come and fight, I'll be there, I'm sorry I wasn't there. A couple of the people that hid inside and that were afraid to fight, were tossed out of the organization because they were cowards. So we got rid of our weak links, and we recruited more fighters, so that sort of thing. So Antifa's thinking it's a big victory for them because they're coming in and they bloody people up, but we see them running down the streets, and then the police show some neighbor, because this is happening in the middle of the street, so people are not us or them, but other, because they hate the cops, we don't like the cops, but civilians were calling the police, and so the cops showed up, and we understand there was some Antifa that were arrested, and they were all let go as usual. So that further radicalized people who just said, oh, yeah, the cops picked them up, but they let them go as they always do. So even though we weren't ones out there with banners saying death to the cops and all that kind of stuff, like our far left adversaries, they still got let go. They always got let go. Typically, they would always be arrested at our events and things, and they would get like, most often, not always, but most often they would not. They might get charged, but the prosecutors or whatever would let them go. So we saw that as system corruption, that they were in with the far left, and it just led to further radicalization. And now people wanted to come and fight. And then when we had rallies where there wasn't violence, people would be bummed out, and the consequences of being involved in something like that, it felt like, the best way I can explain it is being at war with the world, like, every day. I felt like I was a soldier, for the white race. Basically, we were at war. I mean, that's how it felt. So when you have people that come back from combat and things like that, I mean, that's a lot of we had a lot of combat vets in the group. So the PTSD and things like that. This is like normal. That, I've had problems with that too. I've had police raids at the houses. I had a no knock warrant one time where the SWAT team, full body armor, head to toe, assault rifles, kicked my doors in with my little kids at home at 4 in the morning and put guns in my face. And the kids saw that and being hauled out in handcuffs. um, to this day, I still have PTSD from being involved in that. It's like you left the war, and this is civilian life. So I had to learn how to live life again, and be a civilian and be back. Just learn how to, like, be a normal person again. Even when you try to wind down and go to sleep or things like that, and me personally, like, it's better now, but at first, especially, like, you'll shake, you can't sleep, you can't relax, you can't calm down, you just, like, you'll twitch or something, like uncontrollable, like, like, it just makes you, you can't relax, you can't calm down, because you've been in this. That's what long term exposure to this kind of stuff does to a person. It is not a life I would wish on anyone. It is pure hell, depending on what you've all been through. And I've been talking, like, some of these guys that were in a year or two, they don't even know, they have no clue what goes on there. I mean, we're talking long-term exposure to this stuff, and the toll it takes is tremendous. One attempt I'll share, um, on the attempt of my life was, we had, the organization, we had been out on a literature run where we passed out leaflets and things like that, and there was a guy that had joined from the suburbs, and didn't seem like anything. It was some weird behavior. He had some strange behavior, like, which you piece together after the fact. But a lot of the people that were around had different strange behaviors, so I didn't really think too much of it. But he had brought a friend over, and we vetted people that were coming around and say, you don't bring anybody to our house that we haven't vetted, that we haven't. My roommate and I at the time, and don't bring people over. And this guy brings over another individual. He says, this guy's coming with us to pass out leaflets. And I took him aside. I said, why you bring over somebody to my house that I don't know? I said, that's against our policy. It's against our rules. And he says, oh, I just thought we could use an extra hand passing out literature, and we had went down to Rochester, Minnesota, which is I don't remember how far, hour and a half, 2 hours or something from the Twin Cities where we lived. So we passed out literature, and towards the end of the evening, when we were done, we had went into a bar, and we typically didn't pass out leaflets in bars because it was a an environment that was conducive to getting into a fight, because you're going to have drunk people and things like that. But we thought, well, this was kind of an uneventful night. It might be fun to go in the bar and pass out leaflets. And we went in, got thrown out of the bar, of course, and a couple guys in their 40s or so, just overweight, kind of sluggish guys, followed us out. And we're like, you Nazi son of bitches, or you're lucky we don't kick your ass. And we're standing there going, try it. You see what happens. It'll be one punch and you'll be done. And they were just like, they kind of grumbled and stumbled their way back into the bar. There was no fight. And then we got back into the car and said, okay, let's go back to St. Paul. Let's go back home. And as we're driving back, this new guy that was in the vehicle, um, he on the way down, missed this part, but on the way down, he had was telling some kind of strange stories about how skinheads had beat him up or something like that, and he didn't like Nazis. And I said, why are you with us? What's going on? And then his friend jumped in and said, he just had a bad experience with a bad group. It wasn't he's not movement and stuff. And the guy had been passing out leaflets with us. So I thought, well, he's strange. This is strange, but didn't really dwell on it too much. Now on the way back, we're driving back, and my roommate and I were kind of laughing about the guys at the bar and say, those guys really think they could have beat us up? Like, that's really funny, ha ha ha. And then this guy was pretty quiet, that was sitting in the front seat, and he says, I don't think that fight would have went down like you guys thought. And what the hell is that supposed to mean? What are you talking about? And he goes, never mind. It just wouldn't have went down like you think it would have. And this doesn't make no explain. Come on, what's going on? What would happen? Did the guy have a gun? No, he didn't have a gun. Did he have a knife? Did he have something? We're thinking he had a weapon or something. Maybe that's why he's saying this. No, he didn't have that. He had something, though. He had something. And it's like, what is that? What is that supposed to mean? Never mind. I don't want to talk about it. And it left it at that. So this is weird. This is really strange. Didn't think much of it, and I just thought, well, this guy's really weird. I don't want him around again. And I'll tell his friend, who was a brand new member, don't bring this weird dude around. And excuse me. So we get back to the house, and I go in the trunk to pick up the box of merchandise from the record label that I wasn't my record label, but it was the record label I was working for at the time, which is another white power label. And before I reached in, I said, it was nice meeting you. I said to the guy, shook his hand. He shook my hand. And I reached down into the trunk and put my arms underneath the box. He grabbed the tire iron out of one of them 4-prong tire irons out of the back of the trunk as I was doing this, like faster than I could react. And I'm picking up the box, and he grabbed the tire iron. I didn't even see it, like, just quick, and slammed it across the back of my head as hard as he could. And as he hit me, I didn't go down. but he says, "Anti-Nazi League, we're here to kill you." And I just remember stumbling and put my hand across the back of my head. I was stunned. Like I didn't go unconscious, but I was stunned. All the skin, it was split down to the skull. So the skin was hanging off the back of my head like I was scalped. I just remember still not knowing what was going on because I was stunned. And I just felt the back of my head. It felt like a sponge. It was like squishy because it was all the skin was hanging off. And that happened. I just remember like being um, obviously it was concussion or something, and I start stumbling into traffic, and he hit my roommate, took a swing at him, and he blocked him or hit him in the back or the arm, as because he saw it coming. I didn't see it coming, and I just remember stumbling like towards I was going to stumble for some reason towards a back dark alley or something, and because there's traffic flying by, going both directions on the road in front of the apartment building, and my roommate kind of grabs me uh by the jacket sleeve and pulls me into traffic because the guy was still coming with the tire iron, and we almost get hit by a car. People are honking on the horns, and nearly get hit by a car and stumbled across the street. And now there's lights and stuff like that. And then they took off in the car. My roommate was yelling at me like, what are you doing? You almost got hit by a car, like and it's like, you grabbed me, and I was kind of going back and forth. I said, what happened? I said, he said, anti-Nazi League, we're here to kill you. And we didn't call the cops because we handled things ourselves. Like if there was violent, there was always lots of violence. Sometimes it was internal with or sometimes it was fighting in the streets, sometimes it was fighting black gangs, things, other things in the neighborhood. So a lot of times fighting Antifa, I call it Antifa, but it's ARA back then, but it doesn't matter, same thing. Um, um, and fighting each other or fighting other crews and things like that. So you just didn't do it. You just did not call the police. And so I remember we stumbled across the street into the gas station, got some paper towels and stuff to try to stop the bleeding, and then went back up to the apartment. And I remember now feeling like I was losing a lot of blood. And I told my roommate, I said, I need to go lay down. I feel like I'm gonna fall asleep. And I remember him shaking me going, "If you lay down, you will die. You will die. You've lost too much blood." And I said, "I ain't going to the hospital." He goes, "You need stitches. You need to get this stitched up. You're going to die." And I'm like, "I don't want stitches. Stitches hurt." Like I'm not going to go to the hospital. And he keeps shaking me. "You have to go, Jeff. You have to go. You have to go. If you lay down, you're going to die." And so finally I give in, and we go to the hospital. And, we're like, I'm telling him like, we're not gonna say anything. We were just playing around with friends, and it was an accident. I slipped and fell on a table or something. Um, because if the cops get involved, we can't go after this guy because they'll know it's us if something happens to him. So we went to the hospital. A police officer comes by, sees all the blood all over the floor because I'm not stitched up yet, and I'm pissed off because I actually gave in to go to the hospital, and now they're not stitching me up. There was a lot of people in the emergency room that night. It was like a Saturday night or something, and there was gunshot wounds and other stuff that was more serious. I'm assuming than mine, or I got forgotten about, or maybe it was the swastikas on our jackets. I don't know. So I'm shuffling through the blood on the floor to make it more dramatic on purpose. So there's blood all over the white linoleum floor. It's just covered in blood. And a cop walks by that was in there probably for a gunshot wound or something. I don't know, but he was there, and he said, "What the heck is going on in here?" It was, oh, we were just horsing around and uh, fell on a table or whatever stupid thing I made up at the time. And he's like, "Well, I'm going to get a doctor because this is crazy." So then somebody come in with a mop, and then the doctor came in and stitched me up. And our thought was we knew who the other guy, who his accomplice was, because it was a guy that had joined us. That was a new probate member. So we could find his friend, and that was the plan. And then I was I was in pretty bad shape. Like this caused migraines for years. I had to have brain scans done to see if I had brain damage. Well, thankfully, from what they could tell, I didn't have any brain damage. They said abnormal brain waves or something, like somebody that has epilepsy or something like that, which I don't. So when they did the brain scans, they said this looks like someone that's like going through a seizure. Like it's spiking. They didn't understand it. Like but they said it's not brain. It doesn't appear to be brain damage. So I was thankful for that, but I was having these headaches for years after that. And so our thought was to go find this guy. And I won't elaborate on what we were going to do, but we thought, well, I'm not in any condition to do anything, and I wasn't willing to, even though I had guys that offered to go take care of it, I didn't want to put them at risk of going to prison or anything like that. And I would never ask my men to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself. And I wasn't in a condition to do something myself because it's like it took my strength away and everything. So I was what 10 days or something that passed. I don't know what it was, and I wasn't able to work. I was just was the migraines were um, all encompassing. Like I felt like I couldn't think, I couldn't work. Which later led to me losing my apartment and being basically out on the street, and it led to a lot of problems. But during this time, so I decided I wasn't gonna, I said to myself, you know what, let's do the right thing here. Even though our code, the unwritten code, is you don't talk to the cops, you don't do anything. I said this was attempted murder. He said he was there to kill me when he hit me, and in my mind I was like, and he also stole that box of stuff. Like technically I owed the guy that ran the record label, because I lost his stuff. He wasn't asking for the money or anything, but I felt responsible. I lost his stuff, his merchandise. And so I was like, so I got to pay him back. And these guys stole that stuff, and attempted to kill me. So let's let's go outside of our code. Let's do the right thing, because I said I don't want any of our people to go to prison for whatever happens to this guy. And even though they were like, well, what if we don't tell you, and all these, things. No, 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 no. I'm not. This happened to me. I'm not going to be responsible for those reactions. I didn't want to put anybody in that position. This guy's going to go to prison for a long time for attempting to kill me. We've got a witness. Like this is a shut and open and shut case. He's going to be in big trouble. Let's just do the right thing. And it was hard. Like, I mean, my roommate and I are going back and forth with it, and then brought in a few of the other guys, and it's like, oh, we don't talk to the cops, like, oh, but maybe you're right. Maybe this is one time we should do the right thing. Let the police handle it. So I went in. And the cops, like, the hospitals are supposed to report this sort of thing. I said, don't get mad at the hospital. I'm the one that lied. I said I was horsing around and fell on a table or something stupid. Don't be mad at the hospital. Let's do the right thing here. And they're like, yeah, it does sound like attempted murder and all that. So a court case, they didn't. They were arguing with me about the merchandise thing. Let's not worry about the stolen merchandise. This is nothing. This is, the prosecutor will take care of this, and so on and so forth. Court case comes. I'm going to court. Also in the trunk of this guy's car was my sweatshirt, hoodie sweatshirt that I was wearing. And I'm in the courtroom. My roommate was in court because he's a witness, and the cops found these guys, and they charged the one. I don't remember what exactly the charge was. It was under attempted murder, which really pissed me off. But it was something they felt like the prosecution felt like they should for sure get. Um, some kind of violent assault, or I don't know what the exact charge was. It was too many years. It was like 97 or 98. I'm on the court, up on the witness stand because I'm on the side of the prosecution because I'm the victim. And the defense attorney is brings in the box of merchandise. So this is like adding insult to injury. There's a whole group of ARA, Antifa, in the back of the courtroom, flipping me off the middle finger. One of them is wearing my sweatshirt, going, haha, like making faces and pointing at the sweatshirt and mocking me while I'm up there on the witness stand, basically. And the defense attorney plays the NSM hotline phone message, which is my voice, giving a little speech and telling people to leave their name and number so we could get them literature or whatever. Is that your voice, Mr. Scoop, on the phone line? And I said, Your Honor, to the judge, I said, how is this relevant? And you're not supposed to do that in court. The judge decides what's relevant, but I didn't really know that, or didn't really care, I guess you could say. But I was like, how is this relevant? And he's like, I'll decide what's relevant, Mr. Scoop. Boom, with the hammer, and okay. Yes, that's my voice. Of course, it's my voice. Okay, so you're the head of the National Socialist Movement, right? Yeah. Okay. And then they bring in the CDs and music and stuff, and they're like, "I want you to read some lyrics out of this CD." And they open up the most offensive looking CD, which was, I still remember this vividly. It was Day of the Sword, which is a Christian identity band, and the cover of it was like a pig with a Jewish star split open on an American flag with blood and things like that. So it was very graphic and hateful. But out of all the lyrics that were all the CDs in there, I thought, I'm glad he picked that one because it was full of Bible verses. And this is how I thought, I'll just read Bible verses up here on the stand now that I have to read CD lyrics. So I'm arguing with the judge, going, why am I reading music lyrics? Do you have a favorite song on here? So I'm being cocky up on the stand now, and because I'm angry, and I think this is not relevant to the case. Like, what does music lyrics and my political affiliations have to do with somebody trying to kill me? Um, the defense attorney, and I'll never forget this because it's stuck with me like it's seared and like it happened yesterday. And he goes, um, "These men are heroes for standing up to Mr. Scoop and the hatred that he represents." So that they were branded as heroes in the courtroom is the way I took it. So um, I said something along the lines to the judge because he was allowing this. It was a black judge, a black defense attorney, which in my mind at the time just made it par for the course. And I said, Your Honor, I said, I don't know why you're allowing this in the courtroom. And now the judge is getting angry with me because I keep questioning why he's allowing this. And I said, the only thing missing is a bear riding around on a unicycle juggling in your courtroom. Or I said something like that, something with a bear and a unicycle, which probably wasn't the best idea. But I was angry. I'm not going to look like a victim, especially with the communists sitting in the back row with them, in the court laughing at me and things like that. And I'm just not that kind of guy. I'm not a victim. I don't, uh, you know, in our world, the hyper masculine environment, you don't show emotions, you didn't show tears or anything like that. And uh, what happened, I made a really long story, sorry, but basically what happened was the guy was let go, no charges. He beat the charges, and I informed the prosecution. I said, "You will never." I said, "I did the right thing." I said, "We were going to go after him." And I just left it at that. I didn't say what we were going to do. So we were going to go after him and handle this thing our way, like we usually do. And we try to do the right thing. And this is what happened. I said, "You will never see my face in your courtroom ever again." I said, "This is political persecution." Um, This was a clear-cut case. Mr. Scoop, we know, we did our best. Um, don't think like that about the justice system. It's all we have. This is America. You know, we lose cases sometimes, we win cases sometimes. If this is the way the court system works, but don't think like that. You know, please don't think like that. And they were trying to be nice, and they lost the case, but and said they did their best, but the judge made the final decision, and these are some of the things that further radicalized me. These are the things that created extremism. And you know, sure, I understand, like, I didn't deserve sympathy or anything like that, because of the hateful belief system that I had. But I did not deserve for somebody to try to kill me and then be and then go to the court system and have that happen. That radicalized me beyond just about it. If there was any chance at me getting out of the movement, that destroyed it. That destroyed it, and it caused me to be so radical, feel more persecuted and radical, and more dedicated to my beliefs than I ever was for 1 second before that day. Because after that, I felt like the whole world was against me, that no matter what I did, right or wrong, it did not matter, that we were at war with the system, and I started understanding why people became like terrorists and doing things like that. And thank goodness I didn't go that route, because it could have very easily. And had I been somebody else and not been quite as had as much self control, I could have went and started really doing some damage. And with the people that I had in the organization and the power, I guess you could say, I had at the time, I could have made some real damage to the system. I could have hurt a lot of people, um, and done some really bad things. But that was our last attempt at ever going to the police for anything. Hate is one of the most destructive emotions that there is, and when you hate other people and you dehumanize others, you lose your humanity in that process. I want to simplify it and say you start hating yourself, but I think most people wouldn't agree with that. But really, that's kind of, if you break it down, that's kind of what it is. I mean, if you're hating everybody else and you've lost your humanity in that process because you're dehumanizing other people based on whether it's political beliefs, whether it's their skin color. These are all superficial things. We're all part of a greater humanity. Like, what does it matter what your ethnicity is, what your race is, what your religion is? These are just superficial things. We're all part of the same tribe, is the same, humanity is our tribe, but what that does to a human being is so toxic, and it is so um I wouldn't wish this on anyone, and that's why I speak out today, because I want to help other people not take this course in this path in life, because it's not healthy, it's not good for humanity, it's not good for the people around you, and it's not good for yourself. So if anybody's looking or thinking about getting involved in this stuff, and they reflecting and thinking this might be for me, no, it's not. Even if you don't care about anybody else in the world, your anybody around you, for yourself, it's not good. Before leaving, I was when I was de-radicalizing while I was still in. I didn't realize that. If anybody would have told me that, I would have called them a liar. But after processing things, that's certainly what was going on, because I'd let go of the racism towards the last couple. I should have left a couple years before I did. Moving to Detroit in 2007 played a role, because white people are the minority there, and I met people of all different races, and started interacting with them, and seeing them as having the same struggles and same concerns and things as I did, and having those interpersonal relationships, and meeting Dia Khan, Daryl Davis, um, doing with those two individuals. They were doing documentaries, which I've been in countless ones over the years, which was nothing new, but how they interacted with me, and how seeing their humanity. Dia said as a child, she felt the ideology that I was a part of made her feel less than, made her feel hated, ugly, not wanted. that hit me like a ton of bricks. That for me was the last straw. And Daryl Davis had explained a similar instance for him, as a young man, how racism affected him and how that affected him. And that was really a big seed as well. Um, because you can't reconcile with that. And when you can see, and I could see and feel Dia's pain, her energy, I could see it and feel it. It was impossible to reconcile with that. Like, how can you, once you've gotten to know somebody, especially, and see their humanity, and you can't, how can you look them in the eye? How can you justify that? I couldn't justify it anymore. So, and it took, I think it took about 2 years after that, after all those incidences. And those incidents were over the course of a year or two, a couple of years. I don't even know the timeline, but they were all happening kind of together. And and then the loss also a lot. I lost a lot of family members. My grandparents both passed, and my who I was very close with, my mother who I was very close with passed. Um, my dog that I had for 17 years was my best friend, and like, was with me all the time, passed all right in a row. I started seeing the value of human life more than I used to, I think, in a way. Um, but it was really seeing the humanity in people that I once vilified, and now, especially working with the Jewish community and stuff today, and those are the people I vilified the most. I couldn't reconcile with it. Like, how can I keep spewing this vitriol, this hate, this anger, all this stuff when I'm seeing the humanity in others? And there was things going on, in my life that you talk about a disconnect. Like, I'm still involved in this movement, and like, I'm seeing different girls that are not even of my same race. The movement didn't know, but I was dating a girl, a Mexican girl, and the Hispanic girl cried, when I told her, you can't come to anything that I'm doing. And I saw that pain. I was seeing how it was. I was dating another girl that, actually was engaged to her, and she was LGBTQ activist before we had gotten together. And she was like, I don't know why you're doing this. Why are you involved in this? And I'm seeing the pain that it's creating in people around me. There's other people that were doing that kind of thing too, that wasn't known, and they were still involved in those groups. So there's disconnects. That's not, it wasn't just me. There was other people that had those disconnects too. And it's like, how do you reconcile with that? There was another guy that had a wife that wasn't white. And people would overlook these things, and it was sort of like, well, why am I doing this? And then you see what it does to them. The last couple years I was there, um, there's a lot of regret because my heart wasn't in it, but I was struggling with, how do I get out? This was the life that I created. This was, and even as I was struggling to leave, and after I left, and cut myself off from people. I wasn't talking to anybody, but I was just talking to. I had to. There was corporate responsibilities and things as I was leaving, so I had to talk to a handful of people to, give things back that belonged to the group and things like that. And one of my closest friends that was involved says to me, I was still taking his calls, and he says, "I'm worried about you. Like, this is who you are. This is who you've been for 25 plus years. This is your life, your business, everything. Are you okay? Do you need money for food? What are you going to do for work, Jeff? What are you going to do with your life? Like, if you shut down your record label and stuff, who's going to hire you? What are you going to put on your job applications? Leader of the Nazi party for 25 years? White power record label executive? you know you have business skills, obviously. You have the leadership skills, but what are you going to do? And this was coming from a good place. This was a friend that cares, but these were things that I did not need to hear at that point, because I never verbalized that. I'm not saying, oh, I'm stressed out, or I'm scared, or I'm worried. I would never do that. I didn't say those things, but those were the fears that I had in my mind, and I didn't even like the word fear. I'm not afraid of anything. Still, I don't like the word fear, but it was a fear. Like, what next? I knew I was going to speak out, but then I still had to process things and all that. But I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, and what next? What really, those were concerns. Like, what do you put on your job application? I wasn't just a closet street soldier in this that wasn't known. I was the face of this. I was the some of these groups call me like the poster boy of Nazism and stuff. Like it was, I was well known. So that was a that was hard as hell. It would have been so much easier to stay involved because that's the life I built. That's the empire or that I built. But my conscience wouldn't allow it. I couldn't. Once I realized, and I dragged my feet for a couple of years. I shouldn't have, and that's a big, big regret because I should have left sooner. I put out a retirement letter first that I retired from the NSM because I knew that was I knew I was going to speak out at that point, but that was a safe way of going away from the group. People could speculate; they could think whatever they wanted. People thought I burned out or it's something, or they would make up their own reasons. He must have done this because something happened. Maybe they threatened him with jail or something. Whether they would threaten me with jail, I would have probably just doubled down. I would have probably just been more radical. So it wasn't that. It was the internal stuff. It was seeing the humanity um, in other people. And so I made the retirement letter, and I left, and handed over the corporation papers and everything I needed to do to break free of that. And it took about 6 months before I started speaking out, and then because I knew, and I want to preface that retirement is okay by their standards. Speaking out against it, you're branded a traitor. So I knew what was coming, the threats and everything else that would come with that. So I needed to process things for myself first and get my own, life together. And I tell you what, out of all the stuff I've been through in my life, which has been a lot, and I think that 6 month period of self-reflection, of self work, and processing things, and then beating myself up a million times over. Why did I do this so long? Why didn't I leave before? Why did I do this? And all that was one of the most difficult times of my entire life. It was hell. It was so hard. And then not just feeling really lost too, because I did it mostly alone. I mean, I did have some help. I did have some people that were um, my father, and I had a couple of other formers that I talked to, and then I had some really tough problems, just with different things. But it was the Simon Wiesenthal Center. It was Dia Khan that I talked to, Daryl Davis, my father, just helping me process things, and especially with the Wiesenthal Center and the Jewish community, being able to ask questions and um, help me debunk some of the things that I was still struggling with, because I'd mostly let go of everything, and I felt like I wasn't anti-Semitic anymore, but I still had questions about specifically like the numbers of the Holocaust and things like that. Like was it what they said it was, and different things like that. So I worked through that stuff, and I'm honest about it now. I mean, it's shameful that I was still questioning it. I'm not proud of that, but it's the truth. It was what I was struggling with. So, um, thankfully, the compassion of others was huge. It was a big part of it. And then, it wasn't all roses and rainbows either. There was people in there, people that, that said that they, were my friend and they wanted to help and things like that. And to this day, they'll call me a Nazi and things like that because I didn't flip when I left. And this is important too, I think. When you leave these type of organizations, you don't want to flip to the other side. You don't want to go like, and I see this sometimes, and there's formers I've seen that have done this. They went from the far right extreme to the far left extreme. And I wasn't willing to do that. And 90% of the people that leave don't, but there is that percentage that do. And what they've done is they've changed one form of extremism for another. And that's not a de-radicalized individual. And recognized that, and I saw it, and I spoke about it, and some people didn't like that. So I said, you're not going to see me. And I've had people that I've helped leave the movement that have asked. I was getting bombarded when I put out my website at the beginning, and this is important. When I put out my website before I formed my organization I work with now, that I was doing peace building, that I was speaking out, and all this. Almost every single person that reached out to me that had been in the movement, a lot of these are people I knew personally, not all of them, but a good percentage of them. If I leave, if I leave with you, or if I leave also, if I make the choice, do I have to become Antifa? Do I have to become a communist? Do I have to become an anarchist? And it wasn't one person, it wasn't two or three, it was like one after another, over and over and over again. I'm like thinking, and they're asking me if I'm a communist. I'm very anti-communist. I always will be. I don't like it, but it's another extreme. So it's like, dude, why are you asking me this? But then I had to bring myself back to that time when I was in. I thought like that too. I thought every person that was left was a communist or an anarchist or some kind of far leftist. And so I went back and I explained to each one of these people, no, you do not have to do that. You can make your own choices, but you can. And then a lot of them will remain kind of conservative, and some will go left, some will go right, but here in the middle, be right, be left, but don't be on these extremes. And a lot of people weren't saying that, so I felt like this is important. I need to make this clear. And in that process, and I still have people to this day, now in 2022, that will say he's a Nazi because I didn't flip. I did not flip, and I couldn't reconcile with that. And I've had a lot of the guys and girls too say, if that's my option, they'll preface it. They'll say, if I have to flip to the other side, I'll stay where I'm at, or I'll go right back. Because I mean, once you go public, you can't go back. But I mean, most people don't go public and do this because it's dangerous and it's stressful and all that. But they'll go back if that's, and it's, so I'm always reassuring them, you don't have to flip. You can just leave hate behind, leave that life behind, be normal, don't be out on those extremes. And no, you don't have to be like that. And if someone's telling you that, tell them to eat shit, basically. It's a process. It takes work. And for some, and I've had people ask, like, well, what's the timeline? There is no timeline because everybody is different. I know people that have been out 10 or 15 years that still struggle with certain things, that they still, and that's fairly normal. I personally don't. I got through that. My one struggle was that with anti-Semitism, and I beat that. I got past it. Thank goodness. Some of my closest friends now are Jewish people, and they're amazing. But others, I've seen people snap of a finger, go from radical to be completely done with it, which it took me longer than that. But and then there's others that'll struggle with things their whole entire life. So there's no timeline. Everybody's different and how they process things, and we need to, I feel, as a society, try to give those people space, give them an opportunity. I mean, it's easy for me to say because I was one. Everybody's case is unique, but mine is more rare, I guess. I don't know, not one person in the United States that spent that many years and none of them were at that level in leadership roles where they were that well known. Um, uh, so that makes my case a little bit more rare. But I figured, like, well, what skill set do I have? I have the leadership skills, I have the business skills. What can I do? But I want to make a difference. So, and I wouldn't risk everything, what I'm doing, um, if I didn't want to make a difference. So I figured peace building is where it's at for me. So that for other, but everybody leaving does have different struggles, because a lot of times Maybe they may need vocational training, they may need college opportunities, they may need other skills. So those things should not be overlooked. It's incredibly important. And one of the biggest struggles a lot of people have, and it was tough for me too, but I managed it, is your social life as well, because it's built around that. There was people taking their vacations to attend rallies and stuff from work, and now they don't have that. I switched missions. I didn't switch extremisms, but I switched missions. My mission before was wrong. I didn't believe it was wrong until later, but I switched missions. Now my mission is peace building and is helping people and helping humanity. So we do it, and that's a pretty common thing for people too. And we want they need to fill that void because they had that. Anybody that was involved, and the longer you involve, the harder it is. But um, to fill that void, so sometimes it might be a hobby, sometimes it might be community work or a different kind of activism. Like with a church or civic group or something like that. They need to find new social networks and things like that. So mentorships, things like that. And I talk with a lot of people. I spend a lot of time with working through that with different people. Um, so I'm fulfilled if that's what you're asking. I personally I have a new mission and I'm working hard at it. So I don't have that issue anymore. But that is something a lot of them struggle with is finding new friends and where they might be accepted. And sometimes I've seen people with a church or other type of civic groups and things. It works really well through speaking out and things like that. Immediately when I spoke out, Daryl Davis reached out to me and he's like, "What do you need? How can I help?" It was unbelievable. Like I had not talked to him since being in his film, and I had his number and everything, and so I programmed it in my phone because when we talked at the thing, and here his number pops up, and I thought, wow, he remembered me, saw that now I want to speak out, and contacted me. So that first 6 months, I didn't have a lot of. I had a little bit of support, but not a lot. And then so Daryl was like, "What can I do? What can we do?" And that was really amazing. And of course, Dia knew I was leaving. So Dia, I talked to her through that journey, and uh, there was other people as well. Not everybody wants to be public, so I can't name them all. It's easy to name the public figures, but there was others too. And then when the Simon Wiesenthal Center reached out to me, that was a big deal because at first I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was a scary group." When I was in the movement, they hunt the old school Nazis across the world. That's what one of the things they're known for. So I thought in my mind, it was like, "Uh-oh, are they coming for me?" Like I remember telling my girl at the time, like, if I don't come back, I might be on trial in Israel or something, half joking, but that's that, it crossed my mind. I told them that too. I said it was a little nervous first going there, but and now I work with them now. So um there's a lot of letting go of those things and making new friends and finding things along the way. So I feel like the work that I do now and how I'm helping humanity that it helps towards redemption. And redemption, the word I like better than forgiveness, I think. But I think that atones for some of the sins of the past and redemption. And just last night, someone was talking about forgiveness, and they said you know you need to forgive yourself. And I've had other friends, I've said things like, "I don't know if I deserve forgiveness." And a black friend of mine, he's, "Jeff, you better not ever say that again." He right in my face, "Don't you ever say that, you forgive yourself. You've done so much. You're doing good things. You stop thinking like that because that's going to hold you back." So I'm happy I'm proud of the work that I do, and I think so. I think I've forgiven myself. It's just a tough word. because a lot of us that were extremists, myself included, I should say myself, it's hard to forgive yourself. It's difficult, but I think the work I do now has allowed for that. I guess that's the best way I can answer that. I'd like you to take a moment to think about what you're doing, what you're involved in, and how it will affect you, your family, and those around you, and what you can do to be a better person. If you have this cause you want to fight for the cause of humanity, not for something that's polarizing and that will divide people. You may think being involved in the movement provides you brotherhood, camaraderie, a sense of family, anything of that nature. But really, what it is, it's more like a cult. And it's isolating you from society, it's isolating you from your humanity, and you're demonizing and dehumanizing other people. It's not good for you to be involved in it, and it's ultimately going to hurt you and cause you an undue amount of stress and harm in the long run. And I hope you've learned something from my own story that can help you and set you on the right path. So you may think that you're not going to have opportunities and that change is difficult. And I'm not going to lie to you, change is difficult and it does require work, but it required work to get where you are today. And you've done a lot in your life to get to that point. So taking on new challenges is part of life. Life is struggle, and you can struggle to be better and overcome those things. Don't just go what you think you're comfortable with and what is the most simplest aspect of things, but do something that's going to challenge yourself to become a better person. Because isn't that what you want to do ultimately, anyways? Is become better, be better than you are. If you're concerned about what to do next in your life and the struggles that you'll and consequences that may come from that, or some of the things that you may be going through, loss of friends or things of that nature, I want to remind you this. Look at it this way: if you have a friend that is going to abandon you or turn their back on you because you've shifted in your thinking, or you're doing something else, is that person really your friend? Is that person really your brother? Is that the kind of brotherhood that really matters, that really counts? It certainly doesn't. Because if that person's truly your family, truly your brother, they'll stand by you whether you leave or you stay involved or not. And if they try to turn their backs on you because you're shifting in your thought process and you don't want to be part of the group, then that group wasn't there for you in the first place. And that's what you need to realize. For me, it took a really long time to learn a lot of hard lessons. Don't be a fool and take the route that I took and struggle all those years and being involved in that sort of thing. I'm very fortunate and very lucky to have survived and not to have gotten this far. I can think of countless individuals that have went to prison, that have been killed, that have lost their lives, and it's just not it's not something that you're going to want to be involved in. There is better choices to make in life. You still have that opportunity. If you're watching this video, you have that opportunity to change. You still have that opportunity, and it's still there for you. All you have to do is reach out and grasp it. The first thing that you need to ask yourself when you're taking this journey out is is what I'm doing really helpful for humanity? Is it really something that's good for me personally? Is it good for my family, or is it causing me undue stress? And the simple first step that you could take is change, is making a step in the right direction, doing something positive. Everybody can do it. It's not that difficult. All you have to do is make a first step in the right direction. Challenge yourself to do something meaningful. Step outside of your comfort box. It was put to me one time that I don't like to step outside of my box of comfort, that I don't do things that are out of the norm. So why not take yourself out of that box and do something different, whether it's putting yourself in a scenario of something that you're not used to, something that's different, and giving it a chance. Not saying you have to enjoy it, or that it's going to be the best thing, but you might be pleasantly surprised. Either way, you're challenging yourself to do something that's a little bit outside of the norm, and that's something everyone can do. If you can't do that, there's a problem. So seriously, everybody can do it. You can challenge yourself and you can make things happen.